IELTS Speaking, responding quickly and automatically to the examiner. In this tutorial, I'm going to share with you a technique that will help you respond quickly and automatically and very smoothly. And it's a technique that you can use at home without a tutor or without a speaking partner. This tutorial is divided up into 3 parts. First, we look at the foundation for quick and automatic responses for the IELTS examiner. Then I'll tell you a quick story about a student who used the technique and managed to boost his score. And then finally, I'll go into the basics and the step-by-step system or guide for you to use the Echo 10 technique. The foundation for being able to speak quickly and automatically is not really based on your ability with the language. Now let me explain. If I'm talking about a topic that I'm not so certain about or that I rarely talk about, then it's going to be very difficult for me to give quick and automatic and smooth answers. Whereas if I'm talking about a topic that I've had thousands of conversations about, that I've explained inside out, back to front, left to right, I've explained 1,000,000 times, and that I've explained or I've talked about very recently, then I'm going to be able to explain it much better than if it was a topic that I didn't know about. And this is regardless of my language ability, because I'm talking about topics, explaining topics in my own language, in English. It's almost exaggerated when we're speaking a second language. And I know this because I can speak Spanish. And I know that if I'm describing or explaining something in Spanish, then it takes me a lot longer. Even if I'm quite competent in the subject, it still takes me longer than if it's with my native tongue, English. So let me give you an example. If I were to explain to you about the spiciness of certain Indian curries, then I couldn't speak this that long without going into ums and ahs and stuff like that. Whereas if I was to talk about academic writing or IELTS, then I could speak for quite a long time in quite a coherent manner and with very full answers, because it's a topic that I'm pretty much speaking about every single day, and it's a topic that I know well. Now the problem comes when we get to IELTS. You see, with IELTS, we have to talk about topics that we're not so well versed in. For example, when was the last time you talked about crime? Or when you talked about the environment? You've probably had a conversation about crime in English before, but I bet you it wasn't in this month. So this is why the technique we're going to learn in a minute, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to respond quickly and automatically. But first, before I share this technique, the Echo 10 technique, I want to tell you a story about how I got this technique. A teacher who told me about a student who on a Friday had a band 6 and was quite struggling with his English ability. I think he was a Turkish student actually. And then a week later he came back and he'd almost jumped a band score. And the teacher was quite surprised. She's like, how did you do that so fast? And he said that he'd been listening to BBC World Service. And not just listening, but he was listening and then repeating and trying to mimic what the announcer, what the broadcaster was saying. And she said that his vocabulary improved, his fluency improved, his grammar and his rhythm improved. Basically an overall, across the board, increase in his speaking ability. And we are going to use a similar technique for the IELTS speaking. It's called the Echo 10 technique. And what we do is we listen to a mock speaking, and I've put some links to mock speakings that I've prepared specifically for this technique. And we listen to them and we pause them and then we repeat it. Now, I recommend you doing this at least 10 times. And if it gets a little bit too easy for you, then you can always up the ante, so to speak. You can just increase the difficulty. If you hear me say, I think crime is a very sensitive topic nowadays, you can transform that into the third person. And then you say, he thinks crime is a very sensitive topic nowadays. Pause. Also, you could listen to the phrase and then you can transform it into the past. This is even more demanding. It's an even more technical skill. So you would say, he thought that crime is a very sensitive topic in the past. What you're doing there is you're practicing the tenses, you're practicing your agility with the language, but when you're listening, we should aim to be as close as possible. So we not only aim for the correct pronunciation, the exact vocabulary, the right rhythm, but we also pay attention to the mouth movements. And this is why I want you to use my videos for this technique, because one, they're already on IELTS topics, they're already model answers, but also I speak at a slightly slower rate than a native English speaker. And this is just because through practice and through lots and lots of teaching, if I speak at a normal rate, it's quite difficult for students to understand me. But as a non-native English speaker, speaking at this speed is perfect, it's fine. Secondly, I vocalize a lot. This is why it makes it easier for you to understand me, because I'm vocalizing. Vocalizing is a good skill to develop. And what it means is you open your mouth fully, you do not swallow the ends of the words, like it's quite common, especially in British English, but you vocalize and you pronounce every sound of the word. And it makes your speaking much clearer and easier to understand. Now, if you liked the video, please press like below and also tell me what material you're going to use this technique with. Are you going to watch James Bond videos and copy James Bond 10 times? Or are you going to use the mock speaking videos? Let me know. I'll be very curious to find out. And also, if you're interested in improving your speaking without an IELTS partner, without a speaking partner, then have a look at the app link below. And all the best with your IELTS preparation.